Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this very special webinar on the third labor of Gemini of Hercules. So before we start, friends, let's do a very short visualization so that we can enter into DK's consciousness. Let's link up as a group. Raise your consciousness as high as you possibly can. Endeavor then to hold steady, holding the mind unwaveringly in the group light. Realize too that Master DK is also standing steady, pouring out upon us his love and strength, and endeavoring to lift us up into a higher state of consciousness. Visualize ahead of us a disk or sphere of indigo blue, a deep indigo blue. Imagine Master DK standing in the center of that disk, waiting. See a band of golden light between us and the disk, gradually shortening, thus bringing us closer together, slowly and steadily, until we enter into the heart of the blue disk. And let us sound one Om, as now we are united in consciousness with Master DK. And let us sound a blue Om on the note of love, G. Om. Labor 3, the gathering of the golden apples of the Hesperides. Just a little guides, friends, so that you understand how I've organized the webinar, because it's very different from the webinars that you are probably used to. So the text of the labor will be in blue and it will be read by Michael. Thank you, Michael. My comments will be in green and DK's quotes will be in deep blue as usual, followed by the reference. And friends, if there's any of you who are astrologers in the audience, I would love you to pipe in from time to time, because I am no astrologer per se. So would love to have your insight and your input. Thank you. Just put your hand up and Joe will unmute you. Thank you. Actually, I would love it to be more of an interactive session, if that's possible. So let's go. Preamble. So before we start, there are a few principles to bear in mind as we study the labor in Gemini. That Gemini is the force which produces the changes needed for the Christ consciousness at any particular point in time and space. And why should that be so? Because Gemini and its inherent second ray influence of love and wisdom controls every one of the pairs of opposites in the great wheel. The second ray of love and wisdom pours through Gemini. Hence, love underlies the entire universe. God is love, we are told. So that's a very, very important principle that we have to bear in mind. Love flows through Gemini. Hence, making Gemini one of the most important of the 12 signs, and its influence lies behind every one of them. Actually, somewhere in esoteric astrology, in his book, Esoteric Astrology, DK says that to the budding esoteric astrologer, when casting a horoscope, to always look at the sun and the ascendant and make the triangle with Gemini. So let's say you were born in May, so Taurus, and let's say your ascendant is Scorpio, for example. So it's Gemini, Taurus, Scorpio. Because Gemini is one of the most important signs and influences the pairs of opposites. Secondly, very important then, Gemini controls esoterically the heart of our solar system, and thus controls the pulsation of life, which sustains all that is. So Gemini is therefore connected with the heart of the sun, the love of the whole. So we can imagine then what kind of energy flows through Gemini. The life aspect, the life that sustains all that is. And thirdly, from our standpoint, which is the evolution of consciousness, DK reminds us that it must never be forgotten that the aim is to bring the solar angel, or the soul, the son of mind, into the seat of power. And that responsibility or that task is entrusted to three great lives which function through Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So let's remind ourselves of the rulers of these three. Rulers of Gemini are Mercury, Venus, and Earth. The rulers of Libra are Venus, Uranus, and Saturn. And the rulers of Aquarius are Uranus, Jupiter, and the moon veiling Uranus. And we will see throughout the labor, the references through certain words of the influence of these rulers throughout the labor. So let's watch out for these. So first of all, why the golden apples? Golden is the color of Buddhi, on the fourth Buddhic plane. Gemini transmits ray 2, the cosmic ray of love, from Sirius to our solar system. And Mercury, the exoteric ruler of Gemini, rules the fourth plane of Buddhi. So cosmic love is Buddhi, hidden in the jewel of every lotus, in every chakra and nucleus of every atom. So therefore, Hercules' task is to seek that life within, Buddhi, or cosmic love, and unite with the soul. So the golden apples may symbolize then the causal body made of the 3 sets of petals whose main characteristic is love, hence golden. Friends, you will see that often I will say may, because I realize that I am sharing my insight, but that doesn't mean that this is the only insight. So that's why if you have another angle, love to hear it and share it with all of us. So who are the Hesperides? Well, in Greek mythology, the Hesperides are the nymphs of evening and the golden light of sunset. They were the daughters of the evening or the nymphs of the west. They tended a blissful garden in a far western corner of the world. They are listed as, in some literature, as the daughters of Atlas, whom we will meet at the end of the labor, or of Zeus. In another source, the nymphs are said to be the daughters of Hesperus. In Greek mythology, Hesperus is the evening star, the planet Venus in the evening. And as you know, Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini and the hierarchical ruler of Capricorn, which rules the 5th mental plane, where the solar angels or the causal bodies are located. So the garden of Hesperides is Hera's orchard in the west, producing golden apples that grant immortality when eaten. In the nymphs, their names were, sorry, my Greek audience for my bad pronunciation here, eagerly, a dazzling light, or Erythia, or Erytheus, the red one, and Hesperithusa, the sunset glow. There were 3 maids. The Hesperides, the sisters, were given the task of tending to the grove, but occasionally pick the apples from it themselves. So not trusting them, Hera also placed in the garden a never-sleeping 100-headed dragon named Ladon as an additional safeguard. So that's in the myth. Michael.
The great presiding one within the council chamber of the Lord had watched the labors of the Son of Man, who is a Son of God. He and the teacher saw the 3rd great gate opening before the Son of Man, revealing a new chance to tread the way. They noted how the laborer arose and prepared to enter on his task. Send out the word to guard the sacred tree.
The sacred tree. So why is the tree sacred? Well, from the etymology of sacred, we know that sacere from the Latin means holy, to make holy. So in Dickey's books, Shambhala is often referred to as the holy city or holy groups when referring to the ashrams, or the holy ones when referring to masters. So the causal body or the soul also is referred to as holy. And why is the sacred tree guarded? Well, if we look at our diagram here, the fifth ray of concrete knowledge or science rules the fifth mental plane where the causal body or the soul is located. And the fifth plane of mind is the sphere of major activity of the Lord of the fifth ray, who, amongst many names, is called the angel with the flaming sword, the guardian of the door. And we are told that he guards the door of initiation into the kingdom of God. Out of this garden, man is driven into the world of physical incarnation, and the angel from the flaming sword protects the entrance, driving him back from entry until the time comes when evolution has progressed so far that he can come to the portal laden with stones which can withstand the action of fire. This is well pictured for us, we are told, in the ancient symbol of the angel with a flaming sword, who stands before the gate of paradise to turn away those who seek the fancied security of that shelter and condition. This angel acts in love and has so acted down the ages for that state of realization which we call paradise is a place of essential danger for all, save those who have earned the right to sojourn there. It's a danger because we are made of different vibrations, friends. That's why it's danger. It's dangerous because the causal body is made of a much higher, made of solar lives of higher vibrations. So the angel protects the unready aspirant, not the place which he seeks to enter, and safeguards him from the risks and perils of that initiation, which must be undergone before he can pass through the 5 divisions of paradise, meaning the 5 initiations, to the place where light dwells and the masters of the wisdom live and work. Hence, the role of the angel, esoterically, the angel with a flaming sword, in the myth symbolized as the dragon laden. Yes, I was one step ahead of myself here. So a dragon with 100 heads protects the maidens and the tree. Michael?
Let Hercules unfold the power to search without discouragement, deception, or too great a speed.
First of all, Hercules has to unfold the power. Okay, what's that power? So let's note that Hercules needs to develop power, not desire. The power to search. Therefore, that power being a quality of the mental plane. Under the influence of Saturn, the teacher, the ruler of the fifth mental plane, the disciple learns the qualities of hard work and discipline. Saturn is to be found upon the first major line of force, the line of will or power and of purpose. That is ray 1, ray 3, ray 5, and ray 7. So DK here gives us the hint that perseverance, strict discipline gives power. So the fifth mental plane and the third atmic plane are allied. Power being given form. And so the disciple is to develop spiritual will. Important for us, disciples, that we have to develop spiritual will. Saturn, the esoteric ruler of Capricorn, is the ruler of the fifth mental plane. We are told that Capricorn is the constellation by means of which comes the conquering will, which releases from form life and initiates the man into the kingdom, wherein the will aspect, not the soul aspect of divinity, expresses itself. DK reminds us that there is a close connection between Earth and Capricorn. The reason for this is that Earth provides ideal conditions for this particular type of achievement because it is in process of transforming from the stage of a non-sacred planet into that of a sacred planet. So this is why Saturn is so powerful a ruler and transmitter to the Earth of the quality, the dynamic quality of the first ray of power. And Saturn rules the fifth mental plane. Without discouragement, deception, or too great a speed, we'll note that these three traits are all negative traits of Gemini. Discouragement is a negative quality of ray 2 of the heart. Deception is a negative trait of the mental plane, as Gemini is an air sign, a mental sign. And too great a speed, also the negative quality of Gemini and its ruler, Mercury. And another name for the metal Mercury is quicksilver. So another solution to Geminian negative trait of too great a speed, deception, etc. DK tells us, let perseverance now be called upon. He has done well so far. And thus the word went forth. So why perseverance? Well, if we look at the word perseverance, we see that it stems from the Latin per, meaning very, and severus, meaning strict. So here it's the one-pointedness of the disciple, which is a very Martian quality, ruler of Sagittarius. And perseverance is a quality of Sagittarius, the polar opposite of Gemini, which rules the fusion of consciousness of the polar opposites in order eventually to facilitate their transmutation into unity. For the two must finally become one. So the lesson here is to fuse in consciousness the qualities of the polar opposites. So if we want to offset let's say, the negatives of Gemini, then bring in the qualities of its polar opposite, Sagittarius. This
I'll
is the
add something in there, Nicole.
Yeah,
for you,
yes, please.
because DK tells us in esoteric astrology that this important role that Gemini has in balancing each axis or pairs of opposites, that Pisces is the point through which the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius is resolved. And this, I think, is very important in terms of the level of sacrifice in Pisces that comes to bear on the resolution of that duality of Gemini and Sagittarius.
Yeah, good point, Joe. Yeah. So, Michael?
Far in a distant country grew the sacred tree, the tree of wisdom.
Why does DK say far in a distant country? What does he mean by that? What is he referring to here? Well, again, the personality and the soul are on different levels and located under different subplanes made of different vibrations. The causal body is the body of consciousness built by the solar angels or solar lives on the 3 higher subplanes of the mental plane, while the personality is built of lunar matter or elementals on the 4th subplane of the mental plane. So the tree of wisdom, the causal body, is built by the solar angels, whose main characteristic is love and wisdom. And we are told on it grew the golden apples of the Hesperides. So the golden apples being then the petals of the soul, or the golden lotus of the soul. We are told that when the right hand of the man of matter grasps the golden lotus of the soul, the left descends, seeking the flower of life, though he seeks it not for selfish ends.
The fame of these sweet fruits had gone to distant lands, and all the sons of men who knew themselves to be likewise the sons of God desired them.
So sweet fruits, why are the fruits sweet? Well, if the apples represent the petals of the soul, whose qualities are outstandingly love, then hence sweet, pleasant to the taste, desirable. And all the sons of men who knew themselves to be likewise the sons of God. Well, here we have Gemini ruling duality, the 2 allied brothers, Castor and Pollux, symbols of the pairs of opposites, soul and body or personality, which Gemini rules. So the souls, the sons of God, and the personality, the sons of men.
Hercules, too, knew of these fruits, and when the word went forth to seek for them, he sought the teacher, asking him the way to go and find the sacred tree and pick the apples.
So he sought the teacher, asking him the way to go. That's a very Geminian trait of learning.
Tell me the way, O teacher of my soul. I seek the apples, and I need them quickly for my use. Show me the quickest way, and I will go.
And again, quickly, quickest way, again refers to Gemini or Mercury, Mercury's quality. Mercury is the divine intermediary who carries messages between the poles with speed, we are told, and light. And for my use, now this statement is uttered as the personality for my use. So here, the individual is not soul infused here. So it's still developing its personality.
Not so, my son, replied the teacher. The way is long. Two things alone I will confide to you, and then it is for you to prove the truth of what I say.
Why does DK say the way is long? Well, there are two ways of interpreting this statement. One, the unfolding of the Christ consciousness or the soul takes eons. In fact, it's the goal of the evolutionary processes in our solar system. So it takes the duration of a whole solar system to achieve this goal. So no wonder the way is long. That's one. The second solar system of the three systems is that of the sun, wherein the quality of the divine second aspect, love, is being perfected. And the second one is that the form must be built first as a medium of expression or as a vehicle whereby the indwelling life may grow, expand, experience, and find itself. And regarding the unfoldment of the outer circle, which is the form that the indwelling life will eventually use, well, this is the longest period, DK tells us, because the initial vibration is slow and heavy, and millennia of lives have to elapse before the interchange of energy between the ego and its reflection, the personal self, the lower threefold man, is such that the consciousness of the man occultly awakens in the hall of learning. So we are told in the first test with Nereus, Hercules responded not, nor knew him for the messenger he was, because he was blind. Blind because he hadn't developed this soul consciousness yet, or that duality is not there. Michael?
Dragon with 100 heads.
Remember, that's your bit there.
Remember that the sacred tree is guarded well. 3 maidens fair cherish the tree, protecting well its fruit. A dragon with 100 heads protects the maidens and the tree.
So who is the dragon? Well, we know that in the myth, it's Ladon, but esoterically, it's the form, the personality vehicles, the lunar pitris, which protects the inner life. We are told that Gemini and Virgo are closely related. In Virgo, the pairs of opposites, soul and body, are blended and of great and supreme importance to each other, because matter protects the germ of the Christ life. Matter guards, cherishes, and nurtures the hidden soul. The sign Virgo is one of the most significant in the zodiac for its symbology, concerns the whole goal of the evolutionary process, which is to shield, to nurture, and finally reveal the hidden spiritual reality. Virgo is regarded by esoteric teachers of hierarchy to be identified with a third aspect of divinity, with a mother principle, and is believed to be the director of the energies developed and recognized in the first solar system. So hence it's matter itself who is the dragon with 100 heads. Because that's its job. Its job is to protect the soul, the life within.
Guard thyself well from strength too great for thee, from wiles too subtle for thy comprehension. Watch well.
Wiles. What is Dike referring to here is the glamour of the sixth astral plane, but also of illusion, the fifth mental plane. So in other words, they are the lunar lives of the personality whose potency on the seventh, sixth, and fifth mental plane, which is greater than the soul's, which is still ineffective because it's still imprisoned within matter, which guards its life or which guards the soul within. That's why Hercules is recommended to be on the guard.
The second thing that I would say to thee is that thy search will carry thee where 5 great tests will meet thee on the way. Each will afford thee scope for wisdom, understanding, skill, and opportunity. Watch well. I fear, my son, that you will fail to recognize these points upon the way, but time alone will show. God speed thee in thy search.
So each of these tests are meant to bring out wisdom and understanding and skill and provide opportunity. So wisdom and understanding relates to way 2 of love of the soul, while skill and opportunity, the third aspect, ray 3. Saturn, ruler of the fifth mental plane, is the great teacher and offers the disciple opportunity to learn. So Hercules has to blend the second aspect, the soul, and the third aspect, personality qualities, before the first aspect can be revealed and known. Speed. God speed thee in thy search. And that refers to the light and speed qualities of Mercury, the exoteric ruler, casting its light on the way of the search.
Nicole?
Yeah.
One way that I define wisdom is knowledge used lovingly.
Absolutely. Yes. Good point, Michael. Yes. It's that mixture of love and skill, isn't it? It brings it together. And it's the wisdom of the soul. Quite right.
Just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Sorry, and Venus doesn't represent intelligent love?
Yes, it does. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Intelligent love. So yeah, here we can say, yeah, wisdom understanding from Venus, from the soul. Good point, Anna. So the first test, Nereus, non-responsiveness of Hercules.
With confidence, because success nor failure held for him a claim, Hercules went forth upon the way, sure of himself, his wisdom, and his strength. Through the third gate he passed, going due north. Throughout the land he passed, seeking the sacred tree, but found it not. All men he met he questioned, but none could guide him on his way. None knew the place.
Land here very often refers to the personality or the physical life. The land, physical plane life, as DK calls it, in contrast to sea, the life of the emotions. So here, in this first test, it's referring to the physical life of the personality being built. So why didn't they know? Why didn't all the people that he questioned, first of all, questions, a very Geminian thing to do. So why didn't they know? Because the bulk of humanity is still astrally polarized and impulsed by desire for materialistic satisfaction, not mentally polarized, seeking the soul, at least not yet.
Time passed, yet still he sought, wandering from place to place and returning oft upon his steps to the third gate. Sad and discouraged, still he sought on every hand.
Discouraged. That's a very negative trait of the heart chakra. The heart chakra, his heart chakra is not open yet, and the heart or the soul is not yet in control. So hence, discouragement. But we see, though, that even though he's discouraged, the ray of love transmitted by Gemini is like tempered steel. Vicky often refers to the ray of love like tempered steel. That is, it's persistent. So we see, therefore, the beginning of a blend of the opposite sign of Sagittarius, the seeker. Hercules is starting to integrate the quality of the polar opposite of Gemini. He keeps seeking, even though he's discouraged, but he knows what he wants.
The teacher, watching from afar, sent Nereus to see if he could aid. Time and again he came in varying form and with differing words of truth. But Hercules responded not, nor knew him for the messenger he was. Skilled though he was in speech, and wise with the deep wisdom of a son of God, Nereus failed. For Hercules was blind. He did not recognize the help so subtly offered. Returned at length with sadness to the teacher, Nereus spoke of failure. The first of the 5 lesser tests is passed, replied the teacher, and failure marks the stage. Let Hercules proceed.
So Hercules is blind. He doesn't respond to Nereus, who is very wise. And in the myth, Nereus is a very old man of very wise, and he always speaks the truth. Blind or sight corresponds to the mental plane. So at this stage of the development of the individual, the mental plane is still too subtle. Even though Nereus was skilled in speech, differing words of truth. So mental emphasis here, but at this early age in the maturity and growth of the individual, the mental vehicle is not yet developed, corresponding to that first stage, which we will discuss later. Hercules failed. Why did he fail? Because there was no interplay between his soul and his personality. He wasn't awakened yet. Second test, wrestling with Antaeus, the serpent.
Finding no sacred tree upon the northern way, Hercules turned towards the south, and in the place of darkness continued with his search.
So south, place of darkness, we are told, which represents the subconscious in the natal chart. All the sounds down below is referred to as the south. So the astral plane, the origin of snake stems from the Latin serpens, which means sly, deceptive. And Antaeus in Greek mythology was the son of the great sea god Poseidon and the earth goddess Gaia. He was invincible as long as he was in contact with the ground or the earth, his mother. So that is deep in the subconscious. Poseidon, the god of the waters, which is really the symbol for the astral plane. So DK tells us in Glamour that the quality of the astral plane, its major characteristic is glamour. It is the field whereon the great battle of the pairs of opposites must be fought, as they are the expression of ancient desire in the one case, glamorous, deceptive, false, and in the other, high spiritual longing for that which is real and true.
At first, he dreamed of quick success, but Antaeus, the serpent, met him on that way and wrestled with him, overcoming him at every point. "He guards the tree," said Hercules. "This I was told, so near him must be the tree. I must break down his guard and, thus destroying him, break down and pluck the fruit."
So he dreamed of quick success, again, that Geminian quality of speed. Gemini and Mercury rules the lower mind, as Hercules here plans his strategy. But his lower mind mistakes Antaeus for the dragon, because Antaeus doesn't guard the tree, the dragon does. So here again, we have the clue that the lower mind is not to be trusted. It's deceptive.
Yet, wrestling with much strength, he conquered not.
So his lower mind, making the wrong assumption, so directs wrongly his energy. So failure is the result.
"Where lies my fault?" said Hercules. "Why can Antaeus conquer me? Even when an infant, I destroyed a serpent in my cot. With my own hands, I strangled it. Why fail I now?
Again, asking questions, a very Geminian thing to do. But when one asks the right question, though, the answer comes. And we are reminded what DK said to one of his disciples, that disciples need to bear in mind always that they grow by the answering of their own questions. Very important advice here from DK. You grow by answering your own questions. The task of the master is not to answer questions which, given a little time or thought, the disciple could answer himself, but to suggest or to throw into the disciple's mind the type of question which warrants his thought, and then to stimulate his abstract mind so he can successfully find the answer. Mercury, the messenger of the gods, rules the three aspects of mind: the lower mind, the son of mind, the soul, and the higher mind. That's how versatile Mercury is. Mercury, or rather the light of Mercury, mediates between the higher and the lower, because it's the expression of the dual aspects of the mind as it mediates between the higher and the lower. So that's the first that we will meet, and we will see this in the next, in the other tests, other sides of Mercury. But this is the first one. It mediates between the higher and the lower, between the brain and the environment and the soul.
Wrestling again with all his might, he grasped the serpent with both hands, lifting it high in the air, away from off the ground. And lo, the deed was done.
So we see that he grasped the serpents with his hands. Hands are ruled by Gemini. So what's buried deep in the subconscious must be brought in the light of the mind, the mental plane, so that it can be controlled. And lifting the serpent high in the air, Gemini is a mental and airy sign, and Mercury is the ruler of the fourth Buddhic plane, the air, symbol of the Buddhic intuitional plane of the spiritual triad. So we see that Mercury expresses the fourth ray energy, which is Buddhic, intuitional, and expressive of the Christ. It is the revealer of the spiritual triad, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, or spiritual will, spiritual love, and the higher mind to the soul.
Antaeus, vanquished, spoke. I come again in different guise at the 8th gate. Prepare again to wrestle.
So the 8th gate is referring to the 8th labor of Scorpio, where Hercules held the Hydra with 9 heads high above him, that purifying air and light might have their due effect. In other words, Buddhi just obliterates the evil below. So here we see the link between Gemini ray 2 and Scorpio ray 4.
The teacher, gazing from afar, saw all that happened, and to the great presiding one who sits within the council chamber of the Lord, he spoke, reporting on the deed. The second test is passed. the danger is surmounted. Success at this point marks his way. And the great presiding one replied, "Let him proceed."
Third test, Osiris, the great arch deceiver, son of the waters, of close kin to Poseidon.
Happy and confident, Hercules went on, sure of himself and with new courage for the search. Now to the west he turned himself, and, turning thus, he met disaster. He entered without thought upon the third great test, and failure met him, and for long delayed his steps. For there he met Osiris, the great arch-deceiver, son of the waters, of close kin to Poseidon. His is the work to bring delusion to the sons of men through words of seeming wisdom. He claims to know the truth, and with quickness they believe.
Here again, we see negative Geminian traits, delusion, illusions, glamour of the mental plane. The West in the natal chart is the personality, the descendant. So no wonder failure met him.
He speaks fair words, saying, "I am the teacher. To me is given knowledge of the truth, and sacrifice for me. Accept the way of life through me. I know, but no one else. My truth is right. All other truth is wrong and false. Hark to my words. Stay with me and be saved." And Hercules obeyed, and daily weakened on the early way, third test, seeking no further for the sacred tree. His strength was sapped.
So we see through the highlighted words, speak, words, saying, knowledge, know, wrong, false, words again. DK here is referring to the lower mind on the mental plane, the third aspect of divinity. Stay with me and be saved. That's the voice of the lower mind, or the dweller on the threshold on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. But that's exactly what intelligence or manas was intended to do in the first solar system, as we saw earlier on. Virgo, an earth sign, guards, protects the life and the soul within. But we have to use discrimination, the quality of the mental plane, to discern between true and false. So the lower mind is very powerful, and he was warned about that. A power too subtle for you, he said. Note that it says all the right words. So here we can witness, friends, today, our politicians, salesmen, advertising, etc., etc. They're all saying the right words, but to deceive and trick. So we have to watch out, especially today, or these days rather. There's a lot of that. The internet is full of it.
He loved, adored Osiris, and accepted all he said. Weaker from day to day he grew, until there came a day when his loved teacher bound him to an altar and kept him bound throughout a year.
So we see that poor Hercules was getting weaker. His strength was sapped, and he was kept bound to its corners 4. Why was Hercules' energy sapped, and why did he get weaker? The stage described in the myth is that of the personality control represented by Busiris. So Hercules is under the control of the dweller, the personality, the third aspect of divinity, which Saturn expresses, rules the lower mind. DK tells us that on the ordinary wheel, in all outer affairs, Saturn controls. And the throat center is ruled by Saturn. So he kept him bound to its corners 4. Well, Saturn is the lord of karma. And we are told that Saturn is one of the most potent of the 4 lords of karma and forces men to face up to the past and in the present to prepare for the future. And we saw too that he kept him bound throughout a year. So here we have a hint that the influence of Saturn is limited by time, because Saturn is also the lord of time. Karma starts at the age of 21. Our Saturn return is around 28 years of age. And the age 35 is a key age for disciples, we are told, until the Uranus opposition at the age of 42. So DK tells us there are certain key points in all lives which are deciding and frequently releasing factors. A major one for all disciples occurs at the age of 35 and still another at the age of 42. So the astrologers in our group here will tell us that the Saturn return is very, very important. So at that return, then Saturn really brings us to reality, forces us to look at reality bluntly and hits us basically with that harsh reality around us and makes us see where we made our mistakes, and therefore provides us with the opportunity to redress that mistake, to make a different choice. So this is Michael's not explanation. What's the word that I'm looking for here? Expression of Saturn, or his thoughts on Saturn from the compilation. Excuse me. Saturn withholds or forces. Saturn breaks the structures which are not well built, but also blocks, obstructs, and prevents. Saturn, however, can bring regulation and balance to any system it influences, and thus can act as a preserver instead of a destroyer. Saturn is the personality, just as Jupiter is the soul. Saturn relates to the third divine aspect, as does the personality. Saturn, as representative of the third ray, is a lord of time and space. The personality is a time-space structure, concretized for the purpose of eventual soul expression in the 3 worlds. Saturn, which promotes definite boundaries, is related to the personal ego with its definitely limited individual identity. The place and function of this personal ego is ruled by Saturn, for Saturn rules purpose, plan, and Dharma. Thank you, Michael, for this great explanation, simple and clear. And DK tells us that Capricorn is an earth sign, and in it we have expressed the densest point of concrete materialization of which the human soul is capable. It is, as a consequence, the sign in which is inaugurated a new cycle of effort, whether this effort is in connection with the individual man or with the initiate. So here we have two aspects or two tasks of Capricorn and hence Saturn. Effort, strain, struggle, the fight with the forces native to the underworld, or the strenuous conditions entailed by the tests of discipleship or initiation. And these are distinctive of experience in Capricorn. So the exoteric and the esoteric planetary ruler of Capricorn are the same. And Saturn rules the career of the man in this sign, no matter whether he's on the ordinary or the reversed wheel, or whether he's on the mutable or the fixed cross. So for the disciple then, Saturn is the planet of discipleship and of opportunity. Through its strenuous tests engendered by the trials of discipleship and initiation, Capricorn leads him to the portal of initiation. The constellation Capricorn is ever regarded as another door and is called esoterically the doorway into life of those who know not death, that is, in the soul realm or in the kingdom of souls. Hence, the angel with a flaming sword. So when he has taken the third initiation and can consciously mount the cross, the cardinal cross, he is then released from the ruling of Saturn and comes under the influence of Venus, who is the governor or the ruler of the hierarchy, which is that of the crocodiles. So his strength was sapped because he was under the control of the personality, not the soul. Hence, sapped strength. And as Nereus said to him in the first test, there is a higher power and strength and wisdom in yourself. Turn inwards and therefore evoke the strength, which is the power, which is the heritage of all the sons of men who are the sons of God. So in other words, look for the soul within. That's where the strength lies.
Suddenly, one day, when struggling to be free and slowly seeing Eucerus for what he was, words spoken long ago by Nereus came to his mind. Truth lies within yourself. There is a higher power and strength and wisdom in yourself. Turn inwards and there evoke the strength which is, the power which is the heritage of all the sons of men who are the sons of God.
So suddenly, why suddenly? And this word gives us the clue to the Uranus opposition that occurs around the age of 42 after the time of the influence of Saturn. So some of the key words associated with Uranus are unexpectedness, revolution, rebellion, freedom, sudden changes, independence, disruption, etc. And I'm choosing these words because it's in relation to the word suddenly, to give us the clue of the nature of Uranus here. So why Uranus? We see the influence of Uranus via Aquarius and Libra, who together with Gemini ensure that the soul takes control of its vehicles. If you remember, we read that earlier on. The aim is to bring the solar angel, the son of mine, into the seat of power. And that task is entrusted to three great lives who function through Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So Uranus affects the soul life far more than they do the personality life, DK tells us. But Uranus also rules the disciple's head chakra, which is the seat of the soul. The throat chakra is ruled by Saturn, just as the two head centers are ruled respectively by Uranus, who rules the head center, and Mercury ruling the ajna. But this is for the disciple. The rulership changes after the third initiation or before the first. Uranus and Saturn are opposites. Uranus is like the earthquake that breaks up the structures that Saturn has built so patiently and so slowly and strenuously. Saturn is the stability of the status quo that Uranus wants to reform, if not obliterate. Wow. At each of these Uranus cycles, at the age of 21, 42, at the age around 63 and 84, we get a new chance to answer the voice within that calls for more unique individuality and release us to greater freedom of the soul from the grip of matter. Even at 84, when Uranus returns to his birth position, there is a part of us that opens up to see to ways of seeing things differently. And I will remind you that our planetary logos is under the control of the Syrian law of freedom. And Uranus transmits this energy from Sirius directly to our hierarchy. And what is this freedom, this principle of freedom all about? It's one of the attributes of deity, and it enables the life or the spirit aspect to free itself from the impact, the contact, and the influence of substance. So today, Uranus is the transmitter of that Syrian cosmic law of freedom via Pisces to the hierarchy, the planetary heart of our planetary logos. Uranus causes the great interference in the human consciousness from intellectual perception to intuitive knowledge.
Suddenly, one day, when struggling to be free and slowly seeing Bucerus for what he was, words spoken long ago by Nereus came to his mind.
So let's see this sentence first. slowly seeing Bucyrus for what he was. So here we see the Saturn influence too, as the keywords for Saturn includes reality. With Saturn, there is no embellishment whatsoever. It hits you with a harsh reality. But we can also see Mercury's influence here, because Mercury illumines the mind, as we saw earlier on, and mediates between the soul and the personality, being the messenger of the gods. Hercules' intuitive soul is being awakened as he remembers Nereus' wise words. Remember that Mercury is the ruler of the cold, clear light of the fourth Buddhic plane of intuition. And he says to him, turn inwards and there evoke the strength which is, the power which is the heritage of all the sons of men, who are the sons of God. Remembering, friends, for my typo here. Remember the intermediary role of Mercury. And so Gemini too is the sign of the messenger, and Mercury is the messenger of the gods, the intermediary who carries messengers between the poles with light and speed. So here we see the second aspect of Mercury, where its light establishes a relation between the higher self and the lower self. So in this third test, Mercury establishes the right relation between the soul and the personality. And we see from esoteric astrology, this is the second aspect of Mercury, who carries the messengers between the soul and the brain and establishes the right relation between the lower self and the higher self. So it is therefore the illumined mind, relating soul and personality. And this process of that higher relationship is carried forward with rapidity upon the path of discipleship. So that's where a lot of us are at, actually. It's our mind is being illumined, where Gemini or Mercury is relating soul and personality. And you don't have to be a Geminian to be privy to these great threads of light.
Silent he lay, a prisoner on the altar, bound to its four corners for one whole year. Then, with the strength which is the strength of all the sons of God, he broke his bonds, seized the false teacher, who had seemed so wise, and bound him to the altar in his place. He spoke no word, but left him there to learn.
So here we see silent he lay as a prisoner. Why? Why is he silent? So to me, it indicates that the soul grows in power subjectively during that time. That's Saturn doing its work of subjectively influencing the lower mind to make the right decision, to correct the mistakes. Here too is a reference to the third initiation, where the dweller is controlled. The third initiation is when the soul controls and subdues the mental plane matter, that is the mental unit, the personality or the dweller. So he broke his bonds. The soul is then released under the influence of Uranus, pouring life or buddhi through the head center. We are also given a hint as to how to do it with the strength, which is the strength of all the sons of God, that is the strength of the soul. He spoke no word, we are told. So now the soul is in control. The voice is ruled by Saturn, and so there's a hint there that Saturn's influence has been broken and no longer rules. He's now under the rule of Venus. And we saw this earlier on when he has taken the third initiation and can consciously mount the cardinal cross. He's then released from the ruling of Saturn and comes under the influence of Venus. The soul is often referred to as the silent watcher, or among the ranks of those who know the law of silence. In Dhyana 2, in one of the meditation that DK gave us, he says, he describes the kingdom of souls as the circle of those who know the law of silence.
The watching teacher from afar noted the moment of release and turning to Nereus said, "The third great test is past. You taught him how to meet it, and in due time he profited. Let him go forward on the way and learn the secret of success."
Release. The moment of release. So what's being released here? What's being set free? Again, another hint to the influence of Uranus. It's the soul energy which is released. Now the soul's in control, whereas before he was chained up, a prisoner of matter. So here, maybe a question to our astrologers in our audience. Is this a hint that the release of the soul energy occurs when Uranus makes an opposition to itself, or during one of the cycles, you know, the first square or the third square, or when Uranus makes an aspect with a sun or with Venus or with one's ascendant? I don't know that answer, friends, but it's worth asking. Anybody knows that answer? We'll sleep on it. We'll ponder on it, as DK says.
Chastened, yet full of questioning relief, Hercules continued with the search and wandered far. The year, spent prone upon the altar, had taught him much. He went with greater wisdom on his way.
Chastened. Why was he chastened? Chastened means disciplined. So here we see he was restrained by Saturn, the teacher at the Saturn return around the age of 28 years old, until the transit of the Uranus opposition around the age of 42 or so. So Saturn offers opportunity by teaching the disciple the right principles via restrictions, boundaries, frustration, confinement, limitations, and crystallization. And Capricorn and Saturn its ruler leads the disciple to the mountaintop of the third initiation. So Saturn, we are told, is the planet of discipleship and opportunity. It is exceedingly active today, presenting to the world disciple those difficult situations and crises which will involve free choice, discriminative, pioneering, wise response, and correct decision. So Saturn, having offered opportunity and offered us a choice to bring about the needed changes and destroy that which holds back the free expression of the soul. So therefore, he leads us to the mountain top of initiation. Fourth test, freeing Prometheus from the eagle eating his liver.
Suddenly, he halted his steps. A cry of deep distress smote on his ear. Some vultures circling o'er a distant rock caught his attention. And then again the cry broke forth. Should he proceed upon his way, or should he seek the one who seemed in need, and thus retard his steps? He pondered on the problem of delay. A year had now been lost. He felt the need for haste. Again a cry broke forth, and Hercules, with rapid steps, sped to his brother's help. He found Prometheus chained upon a rock, suffering dire agonies of pain caused by the vultures plucking at his liver, thus slowly killing him. He broke the binding chain and freed Prometheus, chasing the vultures to their distant lair and tending the sick man until he had recovered from his wounds. Then, with much loss of time, he again started to make his way.
Suddenly, there's that word again. So is that a hint of another Uranus cycle, the third square at the age of 63? DK tells us that the age of 63 will see another and lesser crisis. And upon the decision then made by you, and it can be physical, emotional, mental, or of soul origin, will depend the future of your life in this particular incarnation. That's a good quote here. At the age of 63, a decision will depend on the decision made by you, will depend the future of your life in this particular incarnation. In other words, the soul decides, shall I stay or shall I go? That's the time. So here there's no more conquering to be done. The 3 lower vehicles have been mastered already. So the lesson in this 4th test is service. The service is rendered, depicted in the symbol of setting Prometheus free and releasing him. And we see here, again, he broke the binding chain. Again, the influence of Uranus here. In other words, now he is acting as a soul, as Uranus rules the head of the disciple, the head chakra. So the soul, one with the will of the Logos, sets man's soul free, saving him and releasing the prisoner, soul or life, from the dense body of the Logos. The soul of man which is the soul of the planetary logos, is set free. And that's what esoteric healing is all about. Releasing the soul or the life within. So we see again the influence of Aquarius with its emphasis on service and its ruler, Uranus. By the third initiation, we are told that 75% of Buddhi has been released in the mechanism of the man. So by now, there's still some residual matter to be redeemed and transformed. Hence, we see Hercules' decision. Hence his hesitation. Shall I help? Or shall I keep going? But he still responded to humanity's or to his brother's help or to the need. He becomes a world server. And I would recommend checking that quote from Letters on Occult Meditation. It's a really good quote, but it's too big here, guys, so I've just summarized it. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, the sign of world service. On the reversed wheel, the Saturn influence exhausts itself in Capricorn, and the man is then free from karma and need no presentation of opportunity, for he stands a free initiate, a true master mason, and can then proceed with world service, undeterred and held back with no thought of self or selfish desire. And he comes then under the influence of Uranus, that mysterious and occult planet. And as we said earlier on, Uranus rules the head center in the disciple, which is the seat of the soul. There are 5 points of crises in the life of an individual. One is the appropriation of the physical sheath between the 4th and the 7th year, and that depicted as in the first test. In other words, the personality is being developed as a vehicle of expression for the soul. Then a second crisis during adolescence, where the soul appropriates the astral vehicle. And we saw that in the second test with Antaeus. Then the third crisis is the mind, the appropriation of the mind vehicle around 21 and between 21 and 25 years, as depicted in the third test with Bucyrus. So here we're talking about the 4th, which is a crisis between 35th and 42nd years, wherein conscious contact with the soul is established. The threefold personality then begins to respond as a unit to soul impulse. That's the 4th test. And the 5th test we will see later on. For the remaining of the years, there should be an increasingly strong relationship between the soul and its vehicles, leading to another crisis between 56 and 63rd years. And again, according to that crisis, will depend the future usefulness of the person, or whether the ego continues to use the vehicles on into old age, or whether there is a gradual withdrawal of the indwelling personality. So around these times, there's that other test where the soul decides, shall I stay or shall I go? Will I be useful or not? or will my vehicles express my energy or not? We saw that.
Plucking at his liver, thus slowly killing him.
So why the liver? Why not at his heart? Because that would kill him really fast. But why the liver? The liver is ruled by solar plexus, the astral plane. The astral body is, for the majority of mankind, we are told in esoteric healing, the major determining factor to be considered. It is the outstanding cause of ill health. So Prometheus here symbolizes humanity trapped on the astral plane as it's polarized there. So the cause of sickness of humanity is mainly astral. So Hercules, or the disciple, helps his fellow human beings, releasing him from the cause, hence esoteric healing. Eso meaning within, from the cause of the disease. He becomes a world server and helps save humanity and release the soul. So he acts under the impress of the spiritual triad, aligned with the will of the soul in his redemptive role.
The teacher, watching from afar, spoke to a seeking pupil these clear words, the first words spoken to him since he entered on his search. The fourth stage on the way unto the sacred tree is past. There has been no delay. The rule upon the chosen path, which hastens all success, is learn to serve. The presiding one within the council chamber of the Lord remarked, "He has done well. Continue with the tests."
So we see that the teacher speaks with clear words. So the disciple, sorry for my typo here, the disciple is soul infused and comes under Venus, the ruler of the soul on the higher mental plane, as clarity is a Venusian quality. So I won't reread that again because we've done that before. So note here that there's no longer an intermediary. The teacher speaks directly to Hercules. At the fourth initiation, the soul no longer serves as intermediary as it's shattered or completely absorbed by the spiritual triad. Love blends with will, just as love and intelligence or knowledge is blended at the third initiation. So from the first initiation or the first test onwards, Nereus, or the solar angel, has been the teacher, the guide, the intermediary between the watching teacher from afar and Hercules. Now the solar angel is no longer needed, as he has accomplished its task as intermediary between this personality and the spiritual triad, and has returned where he comes, that is, from the head, the heart, and the heart in the head chakra, and the middle principle or the soul of the solar logos. Fifth test, the suffering under the weight of the world.
Upon all ways the search went on, and north and south and east and west the sacred tree was sought, but was not found. There came a day when, worn with fear and traveling, he heard a rumor from a passing pilgrim on the way that near a distant mountain, the tree was to be found, the first true statement given him as yet. Therefore, he turned his feet to the high mountains of the east, and on a bright and sunny day, he saw the object of his search, and hastened then his steps. Now I shall touch the sacred tree, he shouted in his joy. Surmount the guarding dragon, see the fair maidens of wide fame, and pluck the apples.
So Hercules turns his feet. This is what the point that Joe brought up before about Pisces. The feet are ruled by Pisces, the sign of the Savior. By that fifth stage, the initiate is identified with a divine task of salvation as he identifies with a plan of redemption. East in the natal chart represents the ascendant, the purpose of the soul. And why bright and sunny day? Sunny, the sun. The mind is illumined by the soul or the higher energies. Mercury and the sun are now one. Both Mercury and Jupiter, bright, are the rulers of the mutable cross. From the point of view of Orthodox astrology, only two planets rule or govern all the four signs of the mutable cross: Jupiter and Mercury. Mercury governs Gemini and Virgo, while Jupiter governs Sagittarius and Pisces. Mercury is the agent or the messenger of the fourth ray of harmony through conflict, while Jupiter is the medium for expression of the second ray. So here we see again ray 4, the connection between ray 4 and ray 2, as we established earlier on. These two rays govern the mass of men upon the mutable cross and are closely concerned with the mass incarnation of the fourth creative hierarchy. Mercury, we are told, rules the Antikarana bridge, be it the not self, between the not self and the self, and between the self and spirit. So here, Mercury is then met again under another name, this time as the sun, mediating between the higher aspect, soul and spirit. For Mercury and the sun are one. As we said earlier on, Mercury is the synthesis of manas, buddhi, mind wisdom, which expresses itself through the human soul. Mercury rules the bridge, the Antikarana. We see that he saw the object of his search, and he hastened then his steps. And we see here in Sagittarius, the polar opposite of Gemini, the disciple walks no longer in the dark, for he sees what he has to do, and he therefore makes rapid progress and travels fast upon the way. He travels upon the wings of the soul. Note the relationship of the winged feet of Mercury, the messenger of the gods, and becomes in his own personality himself the winged god. Mercury governs Gemini, the polar opposite of Sagittarius. So on a higher level here, there's a reference to the fifth initiation, where the keynote of this initiation is freedom from blindness. We see in Raise an Initiation, the fifth initiation called Revelation is the freedom from blindness. That is a liberation which enables the initiate to see a new vision. Here we see then the third aspect of Mercury, the light of Mercury, relating soul and spirit. He walks no longer in the dark, as he sees what he has to do, and he therefore makes rapid progress and travels fast. He flies from point to point, searching for the arrows which he has discharged. He has, figuratively speaking, to dismount constantly from his white horse, the developed and purified personality, and finds where the arrows of intuition or aspiration will take him. So now the Gemini has fused with the polar opposite of Sagittarius. And we see that in order eventually to facilitate their transmutation into unity for the two, meaning the two polar opposites, must finally become the one. Now I shall touch the sacred tree, he says. Touch. Why touch? Because the sense of touch is a ray 2 quality, the second aspect of divinity, which Gemini transmits. We are told that the sense of touch enables the thinker who fully utilizes it to put himself en rapport with the essence of all cells at all stages, and thereby to aid in the due evolution of the sheath and actively to serve. A Lord of compassion is one who, by means of touch, feels with, fully comprehends, and realizes the manner in which to heal and contact the inadequacies of the not self, and thus actively to serve the plan of evolution. So Hercules as a soul now touching the sacred tree is in touch with all souls, and there is only one soul. The oneness of soul is what Gemini reminds us of. Gemini is therefore connected with the heart of the sun, the love of the whole, which we saw at the beginning, one of the principles of Gemini.
But again, he was arrested by a sense of deep distress. Atlas confronted him, staggering neath the load of worlds upon his back. His face was lined with suffering. His limbs were bowed with pain. His eyes were closed with agony. He asked no help. He saw not Hercules, but stood bowed down with pain, with the weight of worlds. Hercules, trembling, watched and gauged the measure of the load and pain. He forgot about his search. The sacred tree and apples faded from mind. He only sought to aid the giant, and that without delay. Forward he rushed and eagerly removed the load. lifting it off the shoulders of his brother onto his own back, shouldering the burden of the worlds himself. He closed his eyes, bracing himself with effort, and lo, the load rolled off, and he stood free, and likewise Atlas.
He gauged the measure of the load and pain. Atlas here represents the world's suffering and pain, and Hercules spontaneously identified with humanity's suffering. And we are told that the goal of the initiate is identification with all forms of the divine life, so that he can know himself to be an integral part of that soul. So he identifies with the suffering of the imprisoned soul. We will see in the next slide the qualities of the heart which Hercules expressed, but let's do this first, and then we'll get on to the qualities of the soul that he expressed, or the heart rather. He forgot. And again, self-forgetfulness is the quality of the soul or the heart. He only sought to aid the giant without delay. So Hercules, as the initiate, identified with his triadal will in line with a logoic redemptive intent and purpose for world salvage. Hercules makes the spontaneous sacrifice and serves on soul impulse, as now the soul is in control and is at one with the souls of men and the soul of the Logos, the one soul. There's no more duality where the mind consciousness is in conflict. Shall I help or retard my search, as it occurred earlier on with Prometheus? The heart center is fully opened and aligned with the head chakra, the will, the seat of the soul. So compassion and sensitivity to the needs of others, all ray 2 qualities of Gemini, demonstrating spontaneous service as a soul quality. And I won't read the 11 qualities, friends, only the ones basically that we are interested here is service, identification with others, compassion, sympathy, wisdom, and sacrifice. These are the qualities that he expressed in that labor. And DK tells us that the initiate considers service as the spontaneous, easy expression of a definite soul contact. Let me reread this. Let's emphasize this. Service is the spontaneous, easy expression of soul contact, brought down onto the physical plane and giving insight, practicality, and inspiration to the disciple as he works on the outer plane of expression. Most disciples, DK tells us, are occupied vaguely with achieving inspiration, but know nothing of the earlier stage of insight, leading to the practical and wise expression of the met need upon the level of daily living. One of the major undertakings of the disciples, of the accepted disciple or the accepting disciple, is to transform himself from a well-intentioned idealist into a man of action on behalf of humanity. Hercules closed his eyes Why did he close his eyes? Because he's focused. He's one-pointed on his intent within and on the task. And that's what we as disciples were meant to be doing. We must be focused on the task of salvaging, of redemption. Bracing himself with effort. This is the expression of the will turning into action. Here we see the integration of Hercules, Ray 1 soul and Ray 1 personality. And as DK says, the world disciple transforms himself into a man of right action through his ability to touch soul levels and thus to be open to the inflow of soul force. This feeds the various centers with life and energy. And these in their turn galvanize the glandular system into activity, turning therefore the man into action, will into action. Here, Mercury is the revealer of the spiritual triad. Atma, Buddhi, Manas, to the soul. And this carries the disciple to the stage of the third initiation. And beyond, Mercury is the revealer of the life aspect during the processes of the higher initiation.
Before him stood the giant, and in his hand he held the golden apples, offering them with love to Hercules. The search was over. The sisters three held still more golden apples and pressed them likewise into his hands. And Egil, that fair maid who is the glory of the setting sun, said unto him, placing an apple in his hand, the way to us is always marked by service. Deeds of love are signposts on the way. Then Erythia, who keeps the gate which all must pass before they stand alone before the great presiding one, gave him an apple, and upon its side, inscribed in light, was writ the golden word of service. Remember this, she said, forget it not. And lastly, Hesperus came, the wonder of the evening star, and said to him with clarity and love, go forth and serve, and tread the way from henceforth, and for I, of all world servers.
So here the maid's message is service. The way to the soul is service on the physical plane. But here, let's note a very important fact here. Hercules got the apples as a result of helping Atlas, not because of his search, which is reiterated by the three sisters. So like attracts like. Hercules looked for the life or the soul within and is attracted it to him. So service is a soul quality. The search for the soul is through service. Compassion, identification with others, and through love expressed on the physical plane, hence deeds of love. The three sisters, Aegle, Erythia, and Hesperus, may represent the three sets of petals of the causal body, intelligence, love, and will. But another interpretation is that they represent the energies of the three rulers of Gemini: Mercury, the exoteric ruler, symbolized by Erythrea, who gave Hercules an apple with the words service inscribed in light. Mercury as the light of mental and spiritual illumination. Venus, the esoteric ruler, symbolized by Hesperus, the wonder of the evening star. Venus is referred to as the morning or the evening star. Note that she spoke to Hercules with clarity and love, both Venusian qualities. Earth, the hierarchical ruler, symbolized by eagerly, the glory of the setting sun. Glory meaning splendor, magnificence, brilliance, is often associated with life, as in the glory of the one, the glory of God, the life aspect.
Then I give back these apples for those who follow on, said Hercules, and return from whence he came.
So note to here that Hercules doesn't keep the apples for himself. He gives them to others who follow. Remember that according to the myth, the golden apples grant immortality when eaten. So as disciples, healers, and world saviors, we salvage, we bring life and sacrifice. Remember, sacrifice, sacere, from the Latin sacere, meaning sacred or holy. And nourish others from the apples of the sacred tree, that is, from the soul. And DK tells us in Dina 2, the initiate on his tiny scale has to learn to work as a nourisher and a savior of the seeds of life within all forms, with which he may achieve a measure of identification. His will must go out in response to the invocative demand of humanity, and his fixed determination must motivate his ensuing activity. Nearly there, friends.
To him, the teacher gave the word of cheer, and then with pointing finger indicated the fourth gate and said to him, pass through that gate, capture the dough, and enter once again the holy place.
Once again, the holy place. DK points the way at the very end of this labor to the essence of the labor of Gemini, which is the love of the soul and of life. And if you remember, we started off with one of the principles of Gemini connected with the heart of the sun, the love of the whole. Ray 2 of Gemini, the holy place, hierarchy, the secret place where light dwells, the soul, consciousness, light, love, and initiation. Thank you very much, friends. I really, really enjoyed sharing this labor with you. Well, it has been a labor of love.